Our reality is broken, the truth about the Mandela Effect. Are your memories reliable or just convincing stories your brain tells with a straight face? Quick check. Did you grow up with the Berenstain bears or was it Berenstain? Did Sinbad star in a 90s Genie movie called Shazaam that somehow vanished? There's a hidden variable most people miss. We're going to test your memory, expose real cognitive glitches, and weigh the scariest theories. One experiment later will make you doubt what you ate for breakfast yesterday. You'll get science, concrete cases, and the one theory skeptics can't dismiss. Ready? If reality is stable, why do millions remember the same wrong things? What we think we remember. Okay, so here's the thing. The Mandela Effect isn't just people forget stuff. It got its name because thousands swore Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 1980s, funerals on TV, eulogies, a national mourning vibe they could describe in detail. He didn't. He became president. That's not a typo. That's a shared false memory with cinematic texture. Most people think memory is like a hard drive. You save a file, you play it back. But here's what actually happens. Memory is reconstructive. Each time you recall, you rebuild the scene from pieces, sensory bits, cultural cues, what should have been there. That works great most days, but when enough people share the same priors, the same stories, the same archetypes, the same should, you get collective misremembering. Personal errors are easy to shrug off. You misplace your keys, you misremember a date, but collective misremembering, where thousands or millions report the same wrong detail, is different. It doesn't just ding your ego, it challenges shared reality. Because society runs on consensus memory, courts weigh eyewitnesses, culture transmits by quotes, logos, and maps. If the crowd can be confidently wrong together, the ground under our social contracts feels less solid. Let's get specific. There's a taxonomy of hot zones where these memory glitches love to live. Logos and brand names, tiny graphic choices you saw 1,000 times, now suddenly wrong. Famous lines from movies, the sentence you've quoted for decades that never appears on the script page. Maps and geography, the shapes that anchored your school years now look off by a few degrees. Timelines, when something happened, in what order, who said what first. These are the pressure points because they mix constant exposure with low-stakes detail, perfect for your brain to optimize and then defend. Microstory: a friend of mine once bet lunch that Forrest Gump says, "Life is like a box of chocolates." Full confidence, he even did the accent. We pulled up the scene, life was like a box of chocolates. He blinked, then he argued context, then he laughed it off, but the unease hung in the air. He didn't just get a word wrong, he felt the alternate line was truer to the character, the cadence, the cultural echo. That's the storyteller brain at work. Why does this matter? Because if memory is a storyteller, we need to ask what stories it's inventing and why those stories converge. Your brain is Bayesian by default. It fills gaps with what's probable under your current model of the world. It trades exactness for coherence. If a bear family from your childhood felt warm and familiar, maybe their last name should end with Stein. If Darth Vader is addressing Luke, maybe he should say his name in the line. If a cornucopia belongs with fruit, your visual system may tuck one into the logo that never had it. Now the stakes: shared memory underpins identity. Generations bond over quotes and brands. A geography class shapes your internal map of the world. When those anchors shift or seem to, people don't just feel wronged, they feel unmoored. And that emotional jolt is fuel. It hardens certainty, it spreads stories faster, it makes corrections feel like gaslighting. Most people think more facts fix it, but confidence doesn't track accuracy. It tracks fluency, how easily the story slips into place. Here's where it gets interesting. The Mandela Effect thrives where confidence and repetition intersect. The more times you've said the wrong line, the smoother it feels. The smoother it feels, the truer it feels. And once a community crystallizes around a specific wrong detail, specificity becomes armor. List of exact scenes, colors, props, these don't guarantee truth. They just make the story richer, and richer stories are stickier. You might be thinking, fine, memory's messy. But why do the same errors pop up across people who never met? Culture synchronizes priors. We see the same posters, movie trailers, classroom maps, cereal boxes, meme remixes. Our brains compress patterns to save space. Then under recall, they decompress, and sometimes they add a piece that should be there. It's not laziness, it's engineering. And that engineering is optimized for usefulness, not perfect recall. There's another layer: social proof. When you meet a confident storyteller describing the exact scene you remember, your brain smooths the joint. Source monitoring, keeping track of where you learned a detail, breaks down. Was it the movie, the parody, the meme, a friend's retelling? After enough cycles, the origin tag is gone, but the detail remains. That's how jokes become quotes and quotes become facts. So does normal psychology explain everything? It explains a lot. Reconstruction, schema filling, source confusion, fluency, social contagion. This cocktail can produce vivid, shared false memories. But for many people, it still feels wrong. Because their memory isn't just a list of facts, it's a lived texture, a personal movie. When the world tells you your movie is edited differently, it feels like reality is the part that glitched. Now, if memory is a storyteller, what stories is it inventing next? Let's test that by walking into the canon cases, the ones you can't unsee once you see them. The canon cases you can't unsee. Let's hit the cases that break brains. First, the Berenstain bears. Most people think it's spelled with Stein. Confidently, they'll even insist they owned a book with that spelling, but every verifiable primary source, publisher catalogs, Library of Congress records, author interviews, first editions spells it Berenstain. Stan and Jan Berenstain signed their own names that way. Early covers, same. What actually happens is phonetic expectation and orthographic regularity. Stein is common in surnames you've seen. Stain looks wrong, so memory silently autocorrects and then defends the correction. Now the Star Wars line. The cultural echo says, "Luke, I am your father." You've heard it in parodies, you've said it out loud, it feels baked in. But the line on the script and in the audio is, "No, I am your father." Vader is answering a specific claim, so why does Luke sneak in isolation? Quotes pulled from context often get a name added for clarity in conversation. Then the meme runs faster than the correction because it's more portable. Say it to anyone and they know the reference. Next up, the Monopoly man's monocle. You can see it in your head, right? Top hat, mustache, monocle, except he never had one in official artwork. What you're doing is blending archetypes, a wealthy banker stereotype plus Mr. Peanut's monocle plus a century of cartoon shorthand for rich. The monocle is a visual cliché glued on by schema. Once you've seen it, your mind backfills it on every box, even though the character's eyes are bare. Pikachu's tail is another sticky one. People swear the tip is black. It's not. Pikachu's tail is yellow with a brown base. The confusion probably comes from early sprites with limited palettes, fan art, and other Pokémon with black accents. Memory compresses electric mouse with bold colors and decompresses with a black-tipped silhouette that reads cleaner at a glance. The more you doodled it in notebooks, the more that simplification set. Fruit of the Loom might be the most emotionally charged, the cornucopia. Many remember the fruit spilling out of a horn. The horn feels inevitable, fruit belongs in a cornucopia, right? But the trademark filings, brand-style guides, and courtroom exhibits show no horn. It's always been fruit grouped together. Again, we see schema pressure. The Thanksgiving image of abundance overlays a brand mark until the overlay feels like the original. People even remember the woven texture of the horn, details your brain invents to justify the belief. So what's the pattern tying these together? Confidence plus specificity. The wrong detail isn't vague, it's crisp. You can draw the monocle, you can spell Stein. You can hear Luke in the breath. Specificity creates a false sense of fidelity. Your brain equates vividness with truth because in real life, the most vivid experiences tend to be the most important. But in recall, vividness can be manufactured by repetition, parody, and cultural remixing. Here's a quick micro test you can run right now. Without looking, visualize the KitKat logo. Is there a hyphen? Many place one there automatically because the rhythm of KitKat suggests separation. The printed word is KitKat, no hyphen. That small gap between expectation and reality is where these effects live, the mind's version of autocorrect optimized for fluency. Another reason these cases persist is that official records feel abstract compared to your lived experience. A PDF of a trademark is sterile. The box on your childhood counter is warm. When those conflict, comfort wins until you sit with the evidence long enough for the comfort to migrate. That migration is slow because social reinforcement keeps the old memory alive. Friends, memes, misquotes in shows, low-effort edits on thumbnails that prove the thing you already think. But here's where it gets interesting. The more the internet repeats the false version, the more it creates plausible sources to confirm the memory. Fan art with a black-tipped tail, costume accessories that include a monocle, bootleg shirts with Stein. These artifacts feel like evidence even when they're downstream of the error. Your brain loses track of which came first, the memory or the derivative that mirrors your memory. So are these just gotcha trivia? No, they're diagnostic. They show us the levers that move collective memory, archetype pressure, conversational clarity, visual shorthand, and repetition. They also show why corrections rarely cure the feeling. You can accept the receipts and still feel the alternate version tug at you for years. And once you accept that single items can glitch this hard, your next question writes itself. If logos and lines can slip, could entire movies? Millions swear they rented a comedy called Shazaam starring Sinbad as a genie with specific scenes they can describe. That's not a misread hyphen, that's a whole narrative. Let's walk into the strangest case of all. The Sinbad Shazaam phenomenon. Here's where the story stops being a neat trivia trick and turns into a full-blown mystery. Millions swear they watched a 90s family comedy where Sinbad played a wisecracking genie, Shazaam, helping kids find a lost treasure and fix a broken home. They remember VHS boxes, rental store shelves, even specific scenes. A living room wish gone wrong, pink smoke. A finale with a family hugging it out as credits rolled. And yet, no such movie exists. So what are the obvious confounds? First, Kazam Shaquille O'Neal's 1996 Genie movie. That's real. Big, colorful hip-hop soundtrack, a giant genie in a boombox. If you were a kid then, those images were everywhere. Second, Sinbad's own genie-adjacent outfit during a 90s TV marathon where he hosted as a piratish character with billowy pants and a turban vibe. That clip circulated, and for a brain primed by Kazam, it became the missing puzzle piece. Sinbad equals Genie equals Shazaam. But that doesn't fully cover the density of memory people report. You can read forum threads years apart with users who don't know each other describing the same beats. A scene with a kid wishing for his crush to like him, a chaotic sequence in a department store that pink or purple genie smoke. Identical props get mentioned: an amulet, a cracked lamp, a cheesy mid-credits blooper reel. The specificity is uncanny. It's not just "I think this existed." It's "here's the scene order, here's the cover art with a gold logo and Sinbad crossing his arms." Now memory blending explains a lot. The 90s VHS culture was a visual soup. Rows of boxes with similar fonts, saturated colors, floating heads, and bold titles that all rhymed. 1,000 family comedies recycled the same poster tropes: kids looking up at a magical figure, sparkles, gradients, teal to purple backgrounds. Your brain compresses those patterns and stores them as the 90s kids movie look. Later, when you retrieve one fragment like Genie comedy, it decompresses a best guess package: poster, scenes, tone, stitched from real films and trailers you actually saw. It gets trickier when you consider the eyewitness density. People cite thrift store finds, torn clamshell cases, or a VHS they remember rewinding. The problem is physical-seeming memories aren't proof, they're a level of detail. Detail feels like evidence because in day-to-day life, the more detail you recall, the more likely you were actually there. But our brains can fabricate details if the narrative schema is strong enough. That means a single blockbuster template. Kid meets magical helper, hijinks, lesson, reconciliation, can seed 100 memories that rhyme. Then Sinbad did something clever. In response to the wave, he made a short meta-prank where he appears as a genie, intentionally riffing on 90s aesthetics: soft lighting, cheesy wardrobe, overacted reactions. It was a joke, a commentary, but for some it felt like a confession. They saw the clip, felt an emotional click, and said, "There it is." The aftershock was predictable: confirmation for believers, fuel for skeptics, and a deeper muddling of what counts as evidence. So what signal could exist inside all this noise? Start with narrative templates. The 90s loved transformation comedies. A magical being arrives, grants wishes, chaos ensues, family bonds tight. Layer and cast conflation. Sinbad and Shaq were both towering cultural figures with single-word stage names, both comedians in family media spaces, both appearing on kid-friendly TV. Add poster aesthetics, a handful of Genie-themed TV episodes across different shows, and a fog of parody sketches. What you get is a latent composite so complete that it feels like a standalone film. There's also the role of early internet forums archiving partial truths. Someone posts a mock-up cover as a gag, someone else screenshots it, and years later the image reappears without the joke caption. Thumbnails on YouTube ride the algorithm with convincing fake VHS textures. Each artifact is downstream of the claim, not upstream, but if you encounter it first, it feels upstream. That reverses causality in your head. I remember it because I saw it, when in fact, I saw it because I remembered it. Now here's a micro story that captures the psychology. Last year, a guy DM'd me swearing he rented Shazaam at a strip mall video shop in '94. He described the carpet color, the bell on the door, the clerk's band tee. When I asked for the store name, he paused, couldn't recall. I said, "Describe the box spine." He said, "Gold serif letters." I sent him 3 real spines from different 90s comedies, same gold serif. He laughed, then got quiet. The memory scaffolding was solid. The title hanging on that scaffolding was not. So is Shazaam proof of a cracked timeline? Or proof that our collective storytelling engine can synthesize a movie from cultural ingredients and then believe it? The honest answer: you can explain the phenomenon with known psychology, schema, source confusion, social reinforcement, and visual template compression without invoking parallel worlds. But don't shrug too fast. The reason Shazaam endures is that it's not a stray logo tweak. It's a coherent narrative memory with shared beats. That's rarer, and it's why people dig in. Everything changes when you see this as an algorithm of the mind, not random chaos. The algorithm prefers familiar arcs, archetypal costumes, and names that rhyme with what's in the neighborhood. Kazam, Shazaam, Sinbad, Shaq, Genie, Smoke, VHS Glow. It picks the most fluent combination and locks it. Once you understand that, group invention stops looking like collective delusion and starts looking like collective compression, lossy, confident, and unbelievably persuasive. Next, let's widen the lens. If our minds can fabricate a movie, what happens when the glitch spans continents, maps, countries, and the shapes that lined your classroom walls? Maps, brands, and geography shifts. Let's talk about the stuff that lived on your classroom walls and in your kitchen cabinets. This is where people say, "No way, that's not where that country sits," with the same confidence they had about a monocle that never existed. Psychologically, these hit your spatial memory, parietal networks, and semantic memory, temporal lobe stores at once, which turbocharges confidence even when detail is off. Start with the Southern Hemisphere whiplash. A lot of people swear New Zealand is northeast of Australia, tucked closer to the Coral Sea. But look at a globe, it's southeast, down and to the right, a long flight into colder water. Sri Lanka too, many remember it directly south of India like a pendant on a chain, not off to the southeast where it actually hangs. And the heavy hitter, South America, moved east. People remember it sitting more under North America, not jutting so far into the Atlantic. When they see the current map, it feels tilted. Why do maps trigger such strong Mandela claims? Authority and repetition. School maps were presented as truths on the wall, unchallenged, daily testable. You traced coastlines, recited capitals, spun the globe. That repetition builds a muscle memory of shapes and relative positions. If your internal map was trained on a distorted image, you'll defend that distortion as reality because it's fluent. The moment a modern, accurate projection feels off, the mind doesn't blame the old chart, it blames reality. And those classroom maps weren't neutral. Off-model classroom charts, regional atlases, and projection choices can warp your intuition. The Mercator projection, plastered across decades of classrooms, stretches areas near the poles and compresses near the equator. It also visually centers Europe and North America for many editions, subtly anchoring your gaze. Then throw in publisher variants, some with cropped margins, some with stylized outlines, some with grid lines that invite mental snapping. Over time, your brain stores a stylized world that isn't wrong so much as optimized for teaching. And later, satellite-corrected shapes feel like the glitch. Now slide from maps to brands, same mechanism, different canvas. KitKat's hyphen has launched entire debates. Many people are sure there's a dash between Kit and Kat. The logo reads as one word. That hyphen lives in the rhythm of speech, and in 1,000 bootleg packages add mock-ups and fan edits. Febreze is another. Lots of folks remember Febreze, double E like breeze. The actual mark uses one E in the middle. Your phonetic system expects airflow to be spelled like airflow. The brand chose a tighter string. Your brain corrects it automatically, then files the correction as fact. Skechers without a T is a quiet assassin. Skechers looks right if you think of sketching shoes on a notebook in homeroom. The brand has always been Skechers. Memory glues the T because the root word in your head is a verb, not a name. Looney Tunes, not Tunes, plays the same tune. Tunes is the common slang for cartoons, and it feels obvious. But the original name riffs on musical shorts, tunes, so the mark says tunes. When people say they remember the other way, they're often recalling VHS cases, off-model licensee art, or fan graphics that use the more intuitive spelling. Let's hit the 51 or 52 states puzzle. You'd think everyone knows it's 50, period, end of story. Yet a surprising number of people, especially outside the US, but not only hold a lingering sense that there are 51 or 52. What's going on? Cognitive anchors. Washington, D.C. functions like a state in some conversations, and Puerto Rico appears constantly in news and ballots debates. Add in Guam, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and other territories mentioned in civics class, and your category states and not quite states grows fuzzy. Under pressure, the brain grabs a rounder number and moves on. Back to geography feels. The moment you say South America is too far east, someone else says no, that's just the map projection. Both can be partly true in experience. If your teacher used a regional map of the Americas that framed the continents in a more vertical relationship, cropping the Atlantic bulge, you learned a relative placement. Later, when you see a full hemisphere projection that shows the bulge, it reads as drift. There's no continental teleportation, just a shift in framing that rewires perceived angles. Here's the pattern you're sensing. Repetition creates certainty. Certainty resists correction. Your brain rewards coherence. If you saw a thing 100 times on a wall chart, your certainty will outlast a dozen high-resolution images because the old version is embedded in a web of memories. The smell of dry erase markers, the color of the pushpins, the quiz you aced. Facts and feelings got braided together. But here's where it gets interesting. Off-model artifacts keep the alternate memory alive. A thrift store globe with outdated borders or a novelty poster that stylizes coastlines can act like evidence, even if it's simply old or decorative. The same thing happens with brand marks. A bootleg shirt, a third-party retailer's sloppy listing, a Halloween costume accessory. Once you've seen a wrong but plausible variant, it functions like a receipt for the version your mind prefers. Now you might be thinking, so it's all just sloppy maps and funky logos. Not quite. The mechanism is deeper, schema pressure plus exposure plus social reinforcement. Your internal world map and your pantry logo set are schemas, exposure cements them. Friends, memes, and confident posts reinforce them. That triad is powerful enough to beat a correction, unless you cultivate a habit of checking dated sources. So what's the mechanism under the hood? We're about to pull it apart. You're seeing a pattern, expectation shaping recall, but to really understand why it feels like reality itself slid a few inches to the right, we need the engine diagnostics. How memory rewrites itself, why fluent stories feel truer than accurate ones, and why corrections bounce off confident minds. Let's open that hood. How memory actually works, the boring truth that isn't. Here's what actually happens when you remember. You're not pressing play on a recording, you're rebuilding a scene from fragments. Reconstruction, not playback. Each recall is a fresh synthesis, sensory scraps, expectations, cultural hints, and the last time you told the story. And every time you recall, you edit. That's reconsolidation. The act of remembering rewrites traces, sometimes strengthening the gist while warping the details. Emotion gates this. High arousal boosts storage of gist via amygdala, hippocampal interactions while degrading exactness. Now this isn't a bug, it's an efficiency hack. Schema theory explains why it works so well most of the time. Your brain stores framework schemas for kitchens, classrooms, superhero movies, brand logos. When a fragment comes in, the schema fills gaps with what's probable. If you can't recall the exact cereal box typography, your breakfast brand schema supplies a likely shape, a likely dash, a likely shade. Priors drive recall. Accuracy yields to plausibility because plausible is faster and usually good enough. But here's where it gets slippery, source monitoring. You don't just remember the what, you need to tag the where. Did that Darth Vader line come from the film, the trailer, your friend quoting it, or a late-night parody? Over time, those tags fall off. The detail persists while the origin fades. When you later feel certainty, you're trusting a detagged detail that might have been born in a meme. That's a source monitoring error, and it's a factory for confident mistakes. Layer and fluency illusions. The smoother something feels to process, the truer it feels. A phrase that rolls off the tongue, a logo that looks right, a map layout you can sketch without effort, your brain equates ease with truth. That's why repeated misquotes beat corrections, repetition boosts fluency, and fluency masquerades as evidence. You're not thinking, I've verified this. You're feeling, this fits perfectly. And we haven't even touched social contagion. Confidence spreads faster than accuracy. Specificity spreads fastest of all. When someone tells a story with concrete beats, colors, props, exact intonation, you mirror their certainty. Your brain compresses their detail into your schema and later decompresses it as if you were there. One compelling raconteur at a party can rewrite a room's memory by Monday. But you might be thinking, fine, that's everyday drift. Why does it feel existential when a community disagrees? Because memory carries identity. If you said a line 100 times, it became part of your social self. A correction isn't just a fact check, it's a small identity threat. Under threat, the brain defends coherence. That defense can look like doubling down, inventing just-so explanations, or seeking receipts that mirror the belief. The goal isn't truth, it's narrative stability. So can normal psychology really account for mass false memories? Let's connect the gears. Reconstruction explains why details morph on recall. Schemas explain why certain substitutions are predictable. Monocles on rich cartoon men, cornucopias near fruit, Stein on bare families. Source monitoring errors explain why we misplace quotes into the original film instead of the parody. Fluency illusions explain why the wrong line that you've repeated for years feels more right than the right line you rarely say. Social contagion explains why entire groups converge on the same wrong specifics in a matter of weeks. There's a catch, though, and it's why believers feel unsatisfied. These mechanisms are invisible from the inside. Vividness, emotion, and coherence are your internal truth meters, and they light up the same way for an accurate memory and a polished reconstruction. When the meters say true and the paper trail says nope, it feels like the paper trail is the glitch. That's not stubbornness. That's your brain doing what it evolved to do, prefer the lived movie to the sterile receipt. Let me show you what that preference looks like. Say you watched a movie once, but you've told the story 10 times. Which version lives in your head, the original cut or your narrated cut? Your narrated cut. Each telling updates the file. Jokes sharpen, pauses lengthen, colors saturate. After a year, you no longer remember the scene, you remember your version of remembering the scene. That's reconsolidation doing its quiet work. Now consider how priors bend perception in real time. Walk into a room expecting it to be cold and you'll notice the draft first. Later, when asked, you'll recall a chillier space than the thermostat would suggest. That same bias runs under movie quotes and logos. Expect a Genie movie to star a comedian with a single-syllable stage name, and your mind will try on Sinbad and Shaq like they're interchangeable, then forget it ever swapped them. This is important because it means the Mandela effect isn't proof that memory is broken. It's proof that memory is optimized for meaning. It preserves gist, themes, arcs, and social usefulness. It drops or edits pixel-level facts unless those facts matter for the story. When enough of us share the same schemas and media diet, our reconstructions rhyme. Shared priors plus repeated retellings produce mass consensus errors that feel personal and precise. So yes, normal psychology explains a lot. It won't scratch the itch for people who feel they held physical proof or remember pre-internet variants. We'll pressure test those edge cases. But first, keep this frame. Your brain is a brilliant liar in service of coherence. If that sounds unsettling, good. We're about to run illusions that feel like glitches, complete with lab-proven ways to plant false recollections you'd swear are yours. Cognitive illusions that feel like reality glitches. Now this is important because once you see how easy it is to fabricate a memory you'll defend, the glitch feeling starts to make sense. Let's start with a classic lab trap, the DRM false memory effect. Researchers read you lists like bed, rest, awake, dream, tired, night. Later they ask what you remember. People confidently recall sleep even though it was never on the list. That lure word fits the theme, so your brain backfills it. You don't feel unsure, you feel certain. That's the scary part. Everything changes when confidence and plausibility marry. In DRM, your brain stores the gist, sleep-related words, and on recall, reconstructs the list. The gist invites a false but fluent detail. That's the same move your mind makes when it adds Luke to I am your father or a hyphen to KitKat. The lure fits the theme, so it sneaks past quality control carrying a badge that says obvious. Now scale it socially. Confabulation isn't just a clinical condition, it's a spectrum we all touch. Under pressure to make sense, the brain fills gaps with likely bridges. You don't notice the bridge got invented because the story flows. Put this in a group and memory conformity kicks in. If the first confident person in a circle says the logo had a cornucopia and paints a vivid picture, the rest of the group's recall drifts toward that version. They're not lying, they're aligning. The misinformation effect is the heavy hitter. Show people a video of a car at an intersection. Later, slip in a question: how fast was the car going when it ran the stop sign? Even though there was a yield sign, many will remember a stop sign. Post-event information overwrites the original trace. In the wild, that post-event is memes, thumbnails, edited clips, or a friend's tidy retelling. Once that edit sits in memory, it doesn't feel like an edit. It feels like it was always there. But here's where it gets interesting. Boundary extension quietly shows how recall inflates context. You see a tight photo of a picnic table. Later, you remember a wider scene, trees, a path, details that weren't present. Your brain stores the implied world beyond the frame so the memory feels complete. Translate that to movies. You recall a character's room wider than shot, adding a lamp that should be there. Or you recall a logo with the background ornament your schema expects. No conspiracy required, just a mind allergic to empty edges. Think of pareidolia for memory, pattern seeking not in perception but in recollection. We see faces in clouds because our visual system privileges patterns that matter. In memory, we see narratives in scraps. Give your recall a few shards, Genie, 90s VHS, comedian, and your pattern engine completes the picture into a full movie. The completion feels earned because it uses real shards. That's why these illusions feel like reality glitches instead of guesses. They're built from honest parts. Let me show you a micro story. Last week, someone told me they remembered a childhood classroom poster with South America tucked directly under North America. They could see the blue border. I asked what else was on the wall. They rattled off a multiplication table with cartoon animals and a faded fire drill map by the door. We found that exact classroom in an old yearbook photo. The world map, cropped with a decorative frame that visually squeezed the Atlantic bulge. Their memory wasn't fake, it was framed. Now you might be thinking, fine, illusions explain drift. But some memories predate the so-called proof. How? Timing is the gnarly part. People say, I remembered Berenstein in 2005. The viral debunk didn't hit until years later. Here's a plausible path without invoking timelines, pre-viral artifacts. A bootleg shirt at a flea market, an early fan wiki typo, a local store signwriter who added a hyphen, a parody sketch you saw once and forgot. These upstream glitches seed long before a meme explodes. And because you rarely tag the source, your brain files the detail as native. Another timing twist, rehearsal without reinforcement. You carry a half-remembered quote for years, you repeat it to friends, each telling reconsolidates it stronger even if it's wrong. By the time the internet proves the original line, your internal file has a decade of retellings on top. The correction is a thin receipt trying to unseat a thick narrative. No wonder it bounces. So what do we do with all this? Use it as a stress test for your certainty. When a memory feels effortless, ask, is this fluent because it's true or true because it's fluent? When a group nods along, ask, who spoke first and how detailed were they? When an image feels like proof, ask, is this upstream of the claim or downstream? Those questions don't kill wonder. They protect you from being drafted into someone else's reconstruction. We're not done, you want receipts. Let's go chase them, primary sources, dated scans, and the places where records hold steady while minds insist otherwise. Receipts vs revisions, chasing primary sources. If you want the truth to beat the vibe, you need receipts. Not memes, not mock-ups, dated, independent, boring receipts. Library scans, publishing ledgers, trademark filings, style guides, film scripts, subtitle databases, shooting transcripts. The stuff that doesn't care how confident your memory feels. Start with books. For Berenstain, librarians can pull cataloging and publication data from the Library of Congress and WorldCat records across decades. Those entries are timestamped by acquisition and cataloged by third parties. You can match ISBNs to specific printings and then view digitized covers on archive sites. When the author's signatures, publisher catalogs, and CIP lines all agree, that triangulation outmuscles 1,000 anecdotes. Now brands. Trademarks live in USPTO records and international databases like WIPO's Global Brand Database. A mark's drawing, description, and first use dates are attached to filings and prosecution history. If Fruit of the Loom had a cornucopia, you'd expect to see a design code for a horn or container. Instead, filings describe fruit groupings. Pair those with brand-style guides often leaked or archived, and you get exact color values, spacing, and logo lockups by year. Style guides are the brand's constitution. Off-model merch is just a sloppy citizen. Web history is your next ally. The Wayback Machine doesn't care about your gut, it crawls sites on specific dates. If you think a logo changed around 2012, pull the brand's homepage captures from 2008, 201, 2014, line them up. Then check press kits in archived press rooms. Logos for journalists are usually versioned and dated. Logo repositories run by designers also catalog vector marks with metadata, but treat those as secondary unless they reference primary docs. Movies, don't rely on what a clip sounds like on your phone. Go to primary or near primary sources. Shooting scripts, dialogue continuity scripts, cue sheets, and subtitle files shipped with official releases. Studio archives and licensed script books carry revision dates and page codes. Subtitles aren't perfect, but when Blu-ray, streaming captions, and official foreign language dubs converge, you get a strong signal. There are also closed captioning transcripts archived by broadcasters that can be dated independently. Court filings are a secret weapon. When companies sue counterfeiters, they attach exhibits, high-resolution logos, packaging D-lines, prior use evidence. Those PDFs are timestamped by the court and stored on docket systems. You're looking at legal quality reproductions designed to withstand scrutiny, not compressed JPEGs from a fan page. But here's the headache: sometimes primary sources conflict or vanish. An early licensee might have used an off-model logo with a hyphen. A regional distributor might have aired a dub that inserted a character's name into a famous line for clarity. A school atlas may have cropped a map to fit a page gutter, visually nudging a continent. These don't rewrite the official record, but they become plausible upstream seeds for later memories. When you encounter two official artifacts that disagree, don't panic. Separate core IP from licensee noise and check the dates and jurisdictions. What about disappearing pages? Links rot. Corporate rebrands purge old-style guides. A YouTube upload gets taken down. This is where you adopt a method, not just a hunch. Triangulate pre-viral, independent, dated sources. If a claim explodes in 2016, look for proof stamped before 201 from at least two unrelated custodians. Example: a library scan plus a court exhibit. Or a Wayback capture plus a physical photo with verifiable context, like a magazine on a newsstand alongside a cover with a known issue date. Microstory: someone sent me a photo of a KitKat logo on a grocery shelf. Looked right. I asked for the original file, not the screenshot, and the receipt in frame. The EXIF date matched a week prior. Then I noticed price tags in Spanish and a third-party import sticker. We tracked it to a non-official confectioner using a lookalike mark in a regional market. Not a timeline slip, an off-model clone doing what clones do. You'll also run into proof that's actually downstream. A viral infographic showing the cornucopia, check its source. You trace it back to a Pinterest board from 2017, which cites a Tumblr post from 2015, which cites nothing. That's not a chain, that's a loop. Primary sources don't point to memes, memes point to primary sources. Okay, so why do minds insist otherwise when the paper trail holds? Because receipts feel cold. The memory feels lived in. Your job isn't to bully feelings with PDFs, it's to out-document them. Build stacks, 3 independent dated artifacts that agree, ideally from institutions with no stake. When you do that, you're not arguing belief versus belief, you're changing the burden of proof. And if your stack ever breaks, good. You found an edge case worth real investigation. The internet as a memory engine and amplifier. Now this is important because the internet doesn't just store memories, it manufactures, edits, and broadcasts them at scale. Forums are basically memory workshops. One confident storyteller posts a vivid version, colors, props, exact lines, and everyone else's recall drifts toward it. That's the online version of memory conformity and the bandwagon effect fused with authority bias. Nostalgia threads are the best accelerant. People arrive wanting to feel a shared past, they'll smooth their own memories to match the vibe. The result isn't a lie, it's collaborative reconstruction. Thumbnails make it worse. A YouTube thumbnail with a fake cornucopia or a black-tipped tail is designed to be legible at 1 inch tall, not historically accurate. Creators crank contrast, add outlines, nudge shapes so they read fast. Then the algorithm rewards click-through. High CTR fakes outrun low CTR corrections because the platform optimizes for engagement, not fidelity. You may never even open the video, but the image sticks. Later, you remember seeing proof. Low-effort edits compound the problem. A hobbyist slaps a monocle on a character as a joke, posts it to a subreddit, and the image gets screenshotted, cropped, watermarked by someone else, then rehosted without the lol. By the third hop, the joke context is gone. You encounter it as a free-floating artifact, and your source monitoring has nothing to grab. It looks upstream. It is. Algorithms love certainty, declarative titles. It's always been this way. Perform hedges, outrage is sticky, so the feed leans into strong claims and tidy answers. Meanwhile, careful posts with receipts feel slow and cold. The system doesn't conspire, it selects. Over time, your diet becomes confident vibes over cautious documentation. That shifts priors, which shifts recall, which feeds back into confident vibes. It's a loop that feels like reality snapping into place. Memes are the internet's compressed evidence. A meme can carry a whole argument in one image, side-by-side logos, a bold arrow, a date stamp. You don't ask where the assets came from because the punchline lands in a second. Memes trade provenance for speed, share enough of them, and a hypothesis hardens into remembered. Once a community treats the meme as a receipt, corrections feel like pedantry. Collective storytelling does the rest. A thread starts as anyone else remember. 10 replies later, the group has assembled scene order, prop colors, even fake production trivia. People add plausible bridges. The director cut that scene, or regional box art was different because those explanations keep the story coherent. The story tightens with each retelling until it feels historical. None of this requires bad faith. It requires a platform that pays you an attention for being crisply confident. Let me show you how quickly this can spin up. Someone posts a found VHS mock-up of a non-existent 90s movie. The textures are perfect, scuffed clamshell, sun-faded spine, rental sticker residue. It hits the front page. Another user remembers a similar shelf in their hometown store and adds a paragraph. A third user AI upscales the mock-up into a full poster with a matching tagline. By evening, a mini-wiki has a cast list and a fake release date. If you arrive tomorrow, you're walking into a set built overnight. Your brain tags it old. And once AI enters, the cost of plausible artifacts collapses. You can generate 10 variations of a logo with a cornucopia in under a minute. You can synthesize a VHS scan aesthetic with lint in the scanner bed and a 1997 timestamp baked into the margin. If you see that before you see the primary source stack, your sense of "I've seen this" gets hijacked. Familiarity is not proof, but online it's masquerading as proof all day. Now, does the internet only amplify false memories? No. It also gives you tools to fight back: archive crawls, court exhibits, scan ledgers, but the default flow favors narrative. Corrections require friction, clicking, reading, comparing. Narratives require vibes, scrolling, and nodding. Unless you intentionally flip the setting, you're riding the vibe stream. So here's the working model. The internet is a memory engine that compresses culture into portable chunks, then amplifies whatever chunks travel best: clarity, confidence, outrage, nostalgia. Those same qualities are the exact inputs that our cognitive system mistakes for truth. That's why online evidence feels like recollection. It's literally tuned to your brain's truth meters. If culture can hack memory this effectively, the next question writes itself. Are we just dealing with contagious stories, or could technology be nudging what we accept as reality? Let's pressure test the scariest claim on the board. Theory 1: CERN and timeline tinkering. Let's tackle the loudest theory first. Did CERN flip a cosmic light switch and nudge us onto a neighboring track? The claim goes like this: around the 2010s, as the Large Hadron Collider ramped up, culture got weird. Logos changed, quotes shifted, whole movies evaporated. Therefore, particle physics poked reality. Clean story, big machine, big vibes. Here's what CERN actually does. They accelerate protons to near light speed and smash them to study fundamental particles and forces. The energies sound wild tera-electron volts, but they're not alien to nature. Cosmic rays slam into Earth's atmosphere with higher energies every day. Safety reviews published before and after startup walk through worst-case scenarios: microscopic black holes, strange islets, vacuum decay. The math and empirical cosmic ray history say no. If the universe were that fragile, we wouldn't be here. This is a base-rate sanity check. Our planet has been a higher-energy collider for billions of years. Now you might be thinking, sure, but that's institutional self-reporting. Fair. So what would a timeline nudge even look like in data? If reality swapped rails, you'd expect discontinuities that outpace human error. Think pre-201 legal records with one logo set, then a sudden universal flip without transitional artifacts across jurisdictions, media, and languages on the same date. Or physical objects with isotope ratios or decay signatures inconsistent with their documented manufacture dates. Not anecdotes, hard discontinuities. Instead, what we see are gradients and noise. Off-model licensee art drifts for years. Localization dubs vary by region. Classroom maps differ by publisher. That's messy human culture, not a clean cosmic patch update. Psych-wise, apophenia makes those gradients look like one grand pattern if you're hunting for a single cause. And when people point to "it changed in 2012, they're often bundling an emotional inflection point: smartphones everywhere, social feeds 24/7, political turbulence with a physics scapegoat. Timing coincidences fuel suspicion because our brains hate uncaused change. We reach for a lever. The biggest lever in sight is the LHC. But here's where it gets interesting. Even if you set aside safety papers, the many worlds flavor some folks mix into this theory doesn't mesh with how quantum decoherence works at macro scales. The LHC is not a timeline switchboard. It's a measurement factory. Results ripple through journals, not through serial aisles. And yet the suspicion persists because the machine is literally underground, literally enormous, and literally beyond most people's intuition. Unknown plus scale equals myth. Let's still Steelman the idea. Suppose CERN-induced anomalies were real. What testable predictions could we make? 1. Geographically correlated effects. People near Geneva should report stronger, earlier memory deviations than people far away, controlling for internet exposure. 2. Time-locked flips. Large run periods should correlate with spikes in high-confidence false memory reports that can't be explained by viral content. 3. Invariant domains. Fundamental constants would show microjumps detectable in precision metrology labs. We don't see those patterns. Memory claims map to media flows, not beam times. There's also an unfalsifiable version. Timelines changed, but the change covers its tracks perfectly except for our memories. That's tidy but useless. If no conceivable evidence could count against it, it doesn't help you navigate reality. It only helps you protect a feeling. And protecting a feeling is fine, just label it belief, not model. So why does the CERN story grab people anyway? Narrative ergonomics. It gives you a single external cause with grand stakes. It converts 1,000 small mismatches into one epic culprit. It lets you outsource discomfort to a machine you can't visit. And it slots neatly into a cultural arc. Science grows too powerful, hubris pokes the fabric reality phrase. We've been telling that story since Frankenstein. Micro story, a viewer once sent me a chart correlating LHC run dates with spikes in Mandela Effect posts. Looked convincing. Then we overlaid 2 more lines, major algorithm changes on a social platform, and a few celebrity deaths that triggered nostalgia waves. The spikes aligned with cultural events and feed tweaks, not beam energy. Same shape, different driver. That's the trap. Correlation is a cargo cult if you don't interrogate the cargo. Now this is important because dismissing CERN without understanding the psychological pull leaves the itch unscratched. The itch is agency. If your memories can't be trusted and institutions wave PDFs, the story that a machine did it restores control. It says, it's not me, it's them. But when you zoom in, the receipts don't show crisp universe edits. They show human variation, design drift, and remix culture accelerating after 2012, right when our attention migrated to phones. Does that mean physics could never touch the macroscopic in a way we don't yet predict? Science stays open to anomalies. If someone produces pre-201, independently archived artifacts that violate material continuity, ink formulations from 1994 matching a logo variant that didn't exist, verified by mass spectrometry and chain of custody photos, then we have a lab problem, not a memory problem. Until then, the CERN theory explains certainty better than it explains evidence. So where does that leave us? With a cleaner lens. Big machines make big myths, but myths can still teach. They point to our hunger for causes, size to our confusion. If not particle physics, what about parallel universes bleeding in at the edges? Let's stress test that next. Theory 2, many worlds, thin places, and Bleedthrough. Most people think parallel universes means a nearby shelf of realities where everything is almost the same except the cereal box. Fun idea. But here's what actually happens in physics. The many worlds interpretation describes quantum processes at microscopic scales, where particles exist in superpositions and branches represent mathematical evolutions of the wave function. It isn't a license to blame your Pikachu tail on a leaky cosmos. It's a framework to avoid collapsing probabilities by fiat. Stretching that to our timelines fused is a metaphor, not a measured phenomenon. Now, metaphor can still be useful if you treat it like a model of the mind. Enter the folklore concept of thin places, locations where the boundary between worlds feels thinner. Cognitively, that maps to high-ambiguity contexts where predictive processing is dominant and top-down expectations override sparse input. In older stories, those are crossroads, foggy moors, doorways at dawn. As a cognitive frame, thin places map to contexts where your brain runs with elevated ambiguity, dim light, partial information, high emotion, or heavy expectation. That's exactly where memory is most likely to remix input into fluent narratives. When people report a bleed-through, they're often describing the subjective feel of ambiguity resolving the wrong way. But let's Steelman the bleed-through idea. If 2 histories overlap, what would show up in data? We'd expect pre-change artifacts that are upstream of any viral contamination. Think dated negatives, physical packaging with verifiable provenance, newspapers photographed in situ that include an impossible logo, all triangulated by independent archives. We'd also expect clusters around specific times or places, more anomalies near an alleged thin place, fewer elsewhere, plus internal consistency across artifact types. Packaging, ads, legal filings all shifting together. Coherence matters. Real shifts should look coordinated, not patchy. Everything changes when you apply testability. A useful hypothesis generates predictions that could be wrong. So here's a practical way to probe bleed-through without funding a particle detector. Step 1. Assemble a control group of mundane brands and quotes with no Mandela chatter. Step 2. Mine dated sources. Wayback Captures physical scans, court exhibits for each item, recording earliest confirmed forms. Step 3. Compare anomaly rates between the hot set Mandela claimed and the control set. If Bleedthrough exists, the hot set should show statistically significant pre-viral upstream variants that can't be explained by licensee slop or typographic noise. If both sets show equal noise, you're seeing normal cultural drift. There's also time symmetry to consider. Many worlds, taken literally, doesn't prefer one branch as real and the other as leak. If branches decohere, macroscopic recoherence would require exotic conditions we've never observed. That doesn't mean your experience of a memory can't feel like recoherence. It means the physics story and the phenomenology story live on different layers. Confusing them creates a narrative that sounds scientific while remaining unfalsifiable. Okay, so why does the many worlds metaphor grip people anyway? Identity continuity. If every decision spawns forks which you keeps going, the unease around branches maps neatly onto the Mandela discomfort. I remember X, but the world insists Y. The Bleedthrough tale offers comfort. Both are true somewhere, and a seam briefly exposed your native track. That's tidy. It turns cognitive dissonance into cosmology. It also encourages selective evidence. You'll notice the one off-model serial ad and ignore the 100 on-model receipts because the seam story needs a single thread. Let me show you a micro-story. A viewer swore their grandmother's attic had a Looney Tunes lunchbox. We asked for photos, then for a shot with a newspaper dated the same day, then for close-ups of rivets and paint wear. The images came in. The logo was Tunes. The O looked like an O pair because of a scratch across the U and N under dust. The brain read Tunes. Was that a bleed-through or a thin place in perception? Low light, nostalgia, expectation, collapsing ambiguity the easy way. Now, to keep this honest, imagine what would count as real support. You'd need converging pre-internet artifacts verified by labs, ink composition matching a year, paper fibers consistent with era, provenance logs from unrelated holders. You'd need consistency across regions. You'd need negative controls, brands with no claims showing baseline error rates so you can say this cluster is different. Without that, Bleedthrough is a story you can't disprove and therefore can't use. Still, the metaphor has value if you aim it inward. Thin places are moments where your prediction engine is loud and the data are thin. Jet lag, grief, déjà vu, the edge of sleep. In those states, the brain privileges prior over signal. Small discrepancies feel cosmic because your model of the world is wobbling. Labeling the wobble as two realities mixing narratively stabilizes you. It's a cognitive coping strategy wearing sci-fi clothes. Practical testability, track prior documentation statistics. For each claimed anomaly, tally pre-viral artifacts that support A versus B, adjust for known error sources, licensee noise, typography bleed, localization edits, then run the same pipeline on a matched control set. If the Mandela set shows a heavier tail of anomalous upstream hits, you've got a real pattern to study. If not, your signal is schema plus selection. So where do we land? Many worlds, literalized, doesn't give you serial box seams. As metaphor, it gives you a language for uncertainty and identity, useful but not evidence. Thin places map to cognitive conditions where ambiguity spikes. Bleedthrough, if it means anything testable, must cash out in artifacts that beat psychology and process noise. Until those stack up, the cleaner explanation lives between your ears. Or if you prefer your chills external, maybe the steering isn't cosmic at all. Maybe it's targeted. Let's talk manipulation. Theory 3, memory manipulation and information operations. Now you might be thinking, what if this isn't cosmic at all? What if someone's steering the story? Let's walk the human route, memory manipulation and information operations. Not the movie version with mind rays, boring, practical tactics that quietly change what groups believe they remember. Start with the playbook. Psyops and influence ops don't need you to accept a lie, they just need you uncertain. Seed doubt, flood the zone, and let people fill gaps with their own schemas. Enter deepfakes and retroactive content seeding. A convincing fake ad from 1994, complete with VHS fuzz and dead pixels, shows a cornucopia that never existed. A few accounts find the same ad in old tapes. That triangulation looks organic. It is. Once you've seen a plausible artifact, your recall shifts toward it. Source monitoring breaks, your brain tags it as upstream. Brands run softer versions during refreshes. A company tweaks kerning, cleans lines, and announces continuity. It's always been about simplicity. The PR copy frames the change as timeless essence. If a community already misremembers a dash or a letter, the brand often avoids direct contradiction. Why? Ambiguity reduces friction. If half your customers swear it used to be KitKat, you don't win by calling them wrong. You win by nodding at heritage while enforcing the new brand guide. Over time, the sanitized mark overwrites messy variants, and people retcon the past to align with the present. Here's the operational trick: asymmetry of effort. It takes minutes to fabricate a vintage poster that feels right, period, fonts, aged grain, a fake catalog number in the corner. It takes hours to falsify provenance well, but it takes days for a skeptic to debunk it properly. Most audiences don't wait days. The first artifact they see becomes the anchor. Every correction after that fights the anchoring effect and fluency bias. That's the battlefield. So how do you differentiate deliberate ops from normal drift? Raise the evidence threshold. Look for coordinated distribution, multiple fresh accounts posting similar finds within hours using mirrored captions pointing to non-archived image hosts. Check EXIF data when you can, reverse image search for earlier uploads, and watch for generative tells, repeating film scratches, nonsensical product codes, or typographic kerning that screams modern software. Real artifacts live in messy ecosystems. Thrift store shots with other period items, identifiable shelving, inconsistent lighting, and incidental context like newspapers or receipts in frame. Microstory: someone sent me a yearbook scan, proving a local team was once called the Looney Tunes. With the double O, the page looked aged, the logo looked legit. We asked for a full spread scan, not the cropped image. On the full page, the halftone pattern around the logo repeated in a tiled grid AI upscaling artifact. The page numbers were non-consecutive fonts, another tell. When we requested a photo of the physical book with a dated local paper, the sender ghosted. That wasn't a timeline seam, that was a planted prop. Information operations thrive on plausible deniability. If challenged, you can always shrug. It's just fan art, or I found it on an old hard drive. Meanwhile, the seeded image keeps circulating stripped of the hedge. Ambiguity is power because it disperses accountability. No single post needs to be bulletproof if the swarm creates enough familiarity. After a week, the community has seen it everywhere. Familiar equals true. Who benefits? Sometimes it's pure engagement farming, controversy pays. Sometimes it's brand-adjacent actors muddying the trail before a rebrand. Sometimes it's bad faith campaigns testing how easily nostalgia can be hijacked. The payoff is soft control. If you can make a crowd argue about the past, you can keep them from agreeing on the present. And if you can make them doubt their own recall, you can sell them comfort, merch, documentaries, influencers who promise the real story. Now let's get practical about defenses. Build upstream anchors. If you're serious, keep a small personal archive, date-stamped screenshots of brand sites in the Wayback Machine, scans of physical media with context items in frame, and hashes of files you store so you can prove your copies haven't changed. When a new old artifact appears, try to place it in a chain. Who posted first? What server? What metadata? If every road leads to the same 2 accounts and an image host with no historical snapshots, flag it. Community experiments help. Before showing a suspect image to a group, ask everyone to write their memory first, privately timestamp. Then reveal the artifact and measure drift. If confidence spikes disproportionately after exposure, you've watched social proof in action. Repeat with controls, show a verified primary source scan next. See which one sticks. This isn't to shame anyone, it's to map how quickly manipulation works so you learn your latency to influence. Okay, so what's left when you strip mystique? A lot of the Mandela fuel can be launched, nudged, and sustained by human hands, some clumsy, some expert. That doesn't erase every edge case, but it explains why certainty clusters around artifacts that travel well online. And it arms you with a posture: trust slowly, verify upstream, and treat seductive receipts like they're on trial. Because sometimes they are. The Skeptics edge case: anomalies that resist easy answers. Alright, let's sit with the cases that make skeptics pause, not the meme-level stuff. The stubborn edge cases that look upstream, feel pre-internet, and still won't neatly fold into "you misremembered." Start with pre-internet print artifacts that appear to match false memories. Every so often, someone finds a tattered book cover, a magazine ad, or a TV listing that seems to show the wrong version. Stein, a cornucopia, a famous line with the added name. The first move is provenance. Where did it come from? What's the chain of custody? Scan resolution, halftone patterns, paper stock, and ink spread tell stories. A 1980s offset print leaves different fingerprints than a 2000s desktop laser. Lab checks of pigments and optical brighteners can date paper within a range. When you run those tests on a handful of claimed artifacts, most collapse into one of 2 buckets. Later reproductions styled to look older, or legitimate period pieces created by off-model licensees rushing to meet deadlines. But not all. Once in a while, a real, period-consistent misprint slips through. That's not a universe seam, it's human error with long legs. Off-model licensees and regional variants muddy the record more than people think. Brand guardianship in the 70s, 80s, and 90s wasn't what it is now. A cereal brand might enforce strict packaging in North America while a regional licensee in South America or Southeast Asia shipped a tweaked logo because the D-line template didn't fit or a local printer substituted fonts. The result? A legitimate but not canonical mark floating in the wild. Years later, someone posts it and it lands like a revelation. The fix here is context. Does the artifact's jurisdiction match the deviation? Are there import stickers? Are price tags denominated correctly? Off-model doesn't equal multiverse, it equals a messy supply chain. Translation and dubbing add another layer. Famous lines are often localized with clarity in mind. In a tense reveal, a dub might add the character's name to avoid pronoun ambiguity. Decades later, fans rewatch the original and swear the English track changed, when in fact they grew up on a regional broadcast or a VHS dub that took liberties. Subtitles are their own trap. Fansubs, broadcaster captions, and official subs all differ. If your memory encoded the line from subtitles while looking away from the screen, you stored the text, not the audio. That's not a glitch. That's an input swap you didn't notice. Survivorship bias keeps the strangest artifacts alive. Common, correct items get used, worn out, recycled. Misprints and oddities get saved because they're novel. In collecting communities, the rarest pieces circulate the longest, scanned, traded, showcased. This skews the available evidence pool toward anomalies. If you search your feed for proof, you'll see an artisanal selection of outliers and conclude the outliers were the norm. A better sample, boring, correct, common items, rarely trends. Then there's the null result problem. What would actually falsify your memory today? If your standard is find me a pre-1995 artifact that matches what I recall, you've set a bar that reality may never clear, even if you're right, because most ephemera dies. Newspapers get pulped, packaging gets tossed, radio logs vanish. A healthy model sets a falsification path before you look. Example, if 3 independent pre-viral sources disagree with my memory and no upstream artifacts support it after targeted searching, I'll downgrade my confidence. Without that contract, you'll chase anomalies forever. Microstory, a researcher I trust swore they'd seen a cornucopia on a Fruit of the Loom ad in a dentist's waiting room as a kid. We tracked the practice's location, called the successor, and asked about magazines they'd kept. An office manager had saved box stacks for recycling. We dug through a year's worth from the era. No horn, just fruit. But in the same stack, a Thanksgiving PSA with a prominent cornucopia was stapled adjacent to a clothing ad on a bulletin board photo. 2 images, side by side, merged in memory over decades. Not proof against all horn claims, but a crisp demonstration of adjacency confounds. Anomalies that resist easy answers do exist. A regional toy blister card with unexpected typography. A trade mag catalog page with a line that matches the misquote. An overseas VHS sleeve echoing the wrong spelling. Treat these as signals to investigate the pipeline. Who designed it, under what constraints, with which references? Often you'll find a production artist using a generic clipart cornucopia or a typesetter correcting obvious spelling. The deeper you go, the more human hands you see. So how do you navigate this without becoming either a zealot or a nihilist? Adopt a tiered confidence system. Tier 1, canonical core, primary trademarks, legal filings, studio scripts, institutional archives. Tier 2, sanctioned but noisy licensees, regional publishers, broadcasters. Tier 3, community artifacts, fan art, memes, user captions. When an edge case appears, place it first, then test upward. If a Tier 2 oddity contradicts Tier 1 records, you have a plausible C. If a Tier 3 artifact is the sole support, you have a vibe, not evidence. Finally, make peace with uncertainty. Some threads won't resolve because the artifacts are gone. That's not license to declare a timeline slip, it's an invitation to calibrate. Ask yourself, would I bet rent money on this memory? If not, label it soft and move on. If yes, do the work, archive hunts, lab checks, provenance. Either way, the goal isn't to win a comment war, it's to build a method you can trust when the next anomaly knocks. Your personal reality audit practical tools. All right, method over myth. If you want to stop getting dragged by vibes, build a personal reality audit. Not fancy, just disciplined. 5 tools used consistently will change how you handle I swear it was. Tool 1, build a personal archive. Create a simple folder structure, brands, quotes, maps, media. Every time you care about a detail, capture it with context. That means date-stamped screenshots saved with the page URL and the file name, plus a quick note, source, why you saved it, and what you think it shows. When possible, don't screenshot, download the original asset or save the PDF. For physical items, take photos with context anchors. A current newspaper, a receipt, a recognizable device lock screen with date. Then back up to 2 places, cloud and a drive, and generate file hashes so future, you can prove nothing changed. Tool 2, source triangulation. Before you form a take, get 3 independent pre-viral dated sources that agree. Independent means they don't copy each other. A Wayback Capture of a brand page, a court exhibit with a logo, and a scanned magazine ad from a library database count as 3. A blog quoting another blog and a Pinterest pin don't. Pre-viral matters because once a claim spreads, artifacts can be corrected to match the meme. Dated means the timestamp is external to the file server time from the Wayback Snapshot, docket timestamps, publication mastheads, not a user-edited file name. Tool 3, memory journaling. When you feel that hot certainty, I know it was a hyphen, write it down before checking. Literally 2 columns, what I recall, confidence 100. Keep it short and specific, then go verify. Record what you found with links and dates. The value isn't shaming yourself when you're wrong, it's building a calibration history. After a month, you'll see patterns. Maybe you're solid on audio lines but weak on typography. Maybe you're great on maps and bad on product names. That self-profile is gold. Tool 4, confidence calibration. Most people use 2 settings, sure and unsure. Add granularity, use a 7-point scale tied to actions. At 2-7, you'll mention the memory but won't argue. At 4-7, you'll share and ask for receipts. At 6-7, you'll bet a small stake and seek disconfirming evidence. At 7-7, you'll pause anyway and try to falsify yourself. Calibration isn't about humility theater, it's a workflow. Your certainty dictates your next move. Tool 5. Community experiments. The fastest way to watch drift in real time is to set up blind tests. Here, the drill, gather a few friends. Pick an item nobody checks first, say the exact punctuation of a logo. Privately, everyone writes their recall and confidence with timestamps. Only then reveal an artifact. Measure how far each person's recall shifts and how their confidence moves. Run a second reveal with a verified primary source, court exhibit, style guide, dated scan. Track who normalizes to the receipt and who clings to the first image. You'll learn 2 things: how priming hits your group and which kinds of proof your circle treats as upstream. Now a couple of pro moves that save hours. Always chase the earliest stable instance. For websites, grab the first 3 Wayback Snapshots around a suspected change and compare the asset hashes. Identical files across months suggest continuity. For print, search library databases by ISSN, ISBN, and pull cover galleries. Periodicals often keep consistent logos issue to issue, making anomalies stand out. For film quotes, align script revisions with release prints. A blue revision page dated after principal photography rarely overrides what's in the theatrical cut. Also note suggestibility. Once you've seen a doctored image, your next recall attempt is already primed. Another pro move: tag noise sources. Build a quick reference list of high-noise domains, bootleg merch marketplaces, fan forums that allow edits without logs, repost accounts with no originals. When an artifact originates there, label it downstream suspect until corroborated. This isn't cynicism, it's triage. You're allocating attention to upstream signals. You'll also want a falsification clause. Before you go hunting, write a single sentence: if I find X, I will downgrade. For example, if 2 independent pre-201 sources contradict my memory and no upstream artifact supports it, I'll drop from 6-7 to 3-7. That clause prevents goalpost drift. It turns an investigation into a test, not a treasure hunt. Microstory: I ran this on my own KitKat-belief. My journal said 6-7 sure. Triangulated 3 sources: a 2008 brand press PDF, a 2006 magazine ad scan, and a 2009 court exhibit, all KitKat. Clause triggered. I dropped to 3-7 and added a note: high fluency from speech pattern and bootleg exposure. A month later, I caught my mouth saying KitKat again. That's the point. The audit didn't erase the feel, it built a counterweight I could reuse. Finally, keep your audits lightweight. 10 minutes per claim max unless you find something truly upstream. The goal isn't to become an archivist, it's to install friction between feeling and conclusion. Over time, you'll notice the biggest win: your certainty curve flattens. You argue less, verify more, and still enjoy the weirdness without getting owned by it. Okay, tools in hand, let's use them. We opened a loop at the start, a breakfast detail you're probably wrong about. Time to run one experiment that will mess with you in a good way. The one experiment that will mess with you. All right, pens out, don't check your phone. Recall 3 cereal logos exactly: Fruit Loops, Cap'n Crunch, and Cocoa Krispies. Don't skip the confidence ratings, metacognition is part of the test. Spell them on paper, then sketch the key shapes. Hyphens, apostrophes, loops, anything you're sure about. Rate your certainty out of 7. Done, good, now we verify. Pull dated sources, not a random Google image. Use the Wayback Machine for brand pages circa 2008-2012 and search library magazine scans. Pre-2010s captures reduce contamination from later meme edits. You'll find fruit, not fruit, 2 O's because the loops are literal fruit flavors. Cap'n, not captain, the apostrophe matters. Cocoa Krispies has that double K and no stealth hyphen. Compare your recall to the receipts. Notice the drift. More important, notice how right your wrong version felt. Now prime a friend, subtly. Ask them to remember Fruit Loops in passing, then hours later run the same test. You're leveraging priming plus the anchoring effect, one casual cue, measurable shift. They'll often write Fruit Loops without blinking, that's a measurable nudge. Your casual phrasing became their schema anchor. When you reveal fruit, watch the negotiation happen in real time: jokes, rationalizations, a shrug, then a quiet discomfort. That's the edit: coherence over truth. Here, where it clicks. Your brain protects narrative fluency, not pixel precision. If fruit looks correct inside a breakfast schema, healthy, fruity, it beats the odd-looking fruit. If Captain reads cleaner in speech, it overwrites Cap'n. Over years, that edit compresses into a feeling. This is how it's always been. The receipts don't erase the feeling, they give you a counterweight. Close the breakfast loop I promised. You probably remembered the milk brand label on your childhood table as 2% milk in big numbers. In a lot of dated photos, the big type is actually reduced fat, with 2% tucked smaller, or color-coded caps doing the heavy lifting. Your memory keeps the gist: blue cap equals 2%, and invents the big numeral because it's easier to recall. Tiny, provable, unsettling. Run one more twist. Show your friend a mocked-up Fruit Loops box with a tiny hyphen between fruit and loops. Ask nothing. A day later, ask them to redraw. Many will add the phantom hyphen. You just watched misinformation enter their file through a single glance. That's the illusory truth effect compressing into recall. No argument, no debate, just fluency acquired. The take-home isn't never trust memory. It's install friction, commit before you check. Verify with upstream, dated sources, track your confidence. When you're wrong, downgrade publicly to yourself, and when useful, to others. That habit breaks the fluency equals truth equation without killing your curiosity. Okay, so what changed? You felt the tug-of-war between vibe and receipt inside your own head. That's the whole channel in one microcosm. Doubt selectively. Don't outsource your memory to feeds, build small archives. And when a claim thrills you, slow down long enough to ask, is this upstream? All right, final thought, then I'll point you to the next rabbit hole you actually want. Here's the takeaway. Your brain is a genius storyteller that guards coherence first and facts second, which is why the wrong details feel so right. If you want more like this, subscribe and hit the next episode where we dissect real manipulation tactics, how narratives get engineered and how to spot them before they rewrite your memories. Or jump to it now while this experiment's fresh in your head.